I didn't notice it all at once. That's the part that still hurts the most. At first, it was just a birthday I heard about after it had already passed. Then a holiday dinner that somehow happened without me. I told myself it was nothing. Families get busy. Life moves fast. I didn't want to be the kind of mother who complains. But over time, the silence became louder than any argument we had ever had. And that's when I began to realize something was wrong. It started in small ways, the kind you can almost convince yourself to ignore. My daughter Sarah would mention plans in passing, always after they'd already been made. "Oh, we went to brunch on Sunday," she'd say casually during our weekly phone call, which had slowly become every other week, then monthly. We tried that new place downtown. It was nice, and I'd smile into the phone, say how lovely that sounded, and wonder quietly why I hadn't been asked along. My son Michael was busier, I understood that. He had his career, his own family. When he stopped returning calls as quickly, I told myself he was overwhelmed. When the grandchildren's soccer games and school plays happened without my knowledge, I reasoned that he probably mentioned them and I'd simply forgotten. At 73, my memory wasn't what it used to be. It was easier to blame myself than to consider the alternative. The holidays were when it became impossible to ignore. For 47 years, Thanksgiving had been at my house. It was tradition. I'd wake up before dawn to start the turkey, spend all morning in my kitchen with the radio playing softly, the house filling with the smell of sage and butter and pumpkin pie. My dining table would be extended with both leaves, covered in my mother's cream linen tablecloth, set for 12 or 15 or however many we were that year. The children grew up around that table. They brought friends, then partners, then babies of their own. That November, 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, I called Sarah to ask what time everyone would arrive. I had already bought the turkey. I'd spent an afternoon going through recipes, planning the menu the way I always did. "Oh, Mum," she said, and there was something in her voice, a hesitation. "We're actually doing something different this year, just keeping it small. Michael's hosting. I thought I told you." She hadn't told me. I would have remembered. I said that was fine. I said it sounded lovely. I asked if I should bring anything, trying to keep my voice light and normal. No, she said quickly. "Don't worry about it. We've got everything covered. It's just going to be really casual, low-key." I said, "Okay." I asked what time. There was a pause. "Actually, Mom, I think they're trying to keep it really small this year, like immediate family only. You understand, right?" I didn't understand. I was immediate family. I was their mother. But I said yes anyway because that's what you do. You don't make a fuss. You don't guilt your children. I'd been taught that by my own mother, and I'd carried it through my whole life. I spent Thanksgiving alone that year for the first time since 1959. I made myself a small chicken breast and some green beans. I watched a movie I'd seen before. I went to bed early and told myself it had been a nice, quiet day, restful. But I cried in the shower the next morning, where no one could hear. Christmas was worse. I bought gifts in October like I always did, wrapping them carefully, writing cards for each grandchild. I put up my tree the day after Thanksgiving, decorating it with all the ornaments the children had made over the years. Construction paper snowflakes from 1982, a clothespin reindeer Michael made in first grade, a photo frame with Sarah's gap-toothed smile, age 7. I waited for someone to mention plans. I waited through December 1st, then the 10th, then the 15th. Finally, I called Michael. "Hi, sweetheart," I said. "I was just wondering about Christmas. What works for everyone this year?" "Oh," he said, and I could hear the television in the background. "Yeah, we're actually doing Christmas Eve at our place this year. Sarah and her family are coming over. We figured we'd start our own tradition, you know? The kids are getting older." "That sounds wonderful," I said. "What time should I come?" The television went quiet. He must have muted it. "Actually, Mom, this year we thought we'd just do it with our immediate families. You know, just us and the kids. Keep it simple." There was that phrase again. Immediate families. As if I wasn't immediate. As if I was something else. Extended. Optional. "Oh," I said. "I see. We'll see you soon, though," he said. "Maybe we can do lunch sometime in January." "Of course," I said. "That would be nice." We never did lunch in January. I spent Christmas watching other people's windows glow warm with light and laughter. I thought about calling them, but I didn't know what I would say. I didn't want to be pathetic. I didn't want to beg for inclusion in my own family. Instead, I sat with my cat, Pepper. and tried to remember when things had changed. I went back through the months in my mind, like flipping through a photo album. Easter had been strange too, now that I thought about it. Sarah had called to say they were going to her husband's parents' house. Michael said they were taking the kids to the beach. Both perfectly reasonable explanations. But when had my children started coordinating their excuses? The new year came and went. I watched the ball drop on television, same as I had for decades. But this time, I turned off the TV the moment it was over. The silence in my house felt thick and heavy. January became February. My birthday is in February. I turned 74 on a Tuesday. No one called. I checked my phone constantly that day, making sure it was charged, making sure the volume was up. I even called Sarah's number just to make sure my phone was working. It went to voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message. By evening, I received 2 text messages. One from Sarah. "Happy birthday, Mum. Hope you're having a great day." One from Michael. "Happy B-Day, Ma. Love you." That was all. No calls, no visits, no cards in the mail. My grandchildren, who I had rocked to sleep and babysat every weekend when they were small, sent nothing at all. I sat on my couch that night and felt something crack inside my chest. It was grief, I think. The kind of grief you feel when someone is still alive, but you've lost them anyway. I started thinking back to when I was younger, when the children were small, trying to find the moment where I'd failed them, trying to understand what I'd done to deserve this growing distance. I remembered the years after their father left. They were 8 and 6, Sarah and Michael, when Robert walked out. He'd met someone at work, someone younger, someone without stretch marks and exhaustion, someone who didn't have to choose between buying groceries and fixing the washing machine. I worked 2 jobs after that. I waitressed breakfast and lunch at the diner on Main Street. Then I worked evening shifts at the department store, folding clothes and ringing up customers until 10 at night. My mother watched the children most days. On the days she couldn't, I brought them with me, and they'd do homework in the break room or play quietly in the store's toy section. I never missed a parent-teacher conference. I made it to every school play, even if I had to ask for the shift off weeks in advance. I sewed Sarah's Halloween costumes by hand. I coached Michael's Little League team one year when they couldn't find enough parent volunteers. When Sarah got accepted to college, I cried with pride. Then I worked overtime for 2 years to help pay for it, even though she had scholarships. I wanted her to have spending money, to not feel poor like I had in school. I wanted her to have what I never did. When Michael got married, I paid for half the wedding. His father showed up for the ceremony but didn't contribute $1. I didn't say anything. I just smiled in my dress from JCPenney and made sure everything was perfect for my son. I babysat my grandchildren every weekend for years. Every Friday night, Sarah or Michael would drop them off, and I'd keep them until Sunday afternoon. We'd bake cookies. We'd go to the park. I'd read them stories and let them stay up late watching cartoons. When they were sick and couldn't go to daycare, I was the one who took them. I used my vacation days. I called in sick to work. I thought I was being a good mother, a good grandmother. I thought I was doing what family does. If this story feels familiar, you're not alone. And if you find comfort in stories like this, subscribing quietly helps this channel reach other women who need to hear them. I'd never asked for much in return. I didn't expect grand gestures. I just wanted to be included. I wanted to be remembered. By March, I stopped calling as often. It hurt too much to reach out and feel the coolness on the other end of the line. The conversations had become polite but empty. "How are you?" "Fine." "How are the kids?" "Good." "Busy with school." "We should get together soon." Yes, we should. But we never did. I started spending more time in my garden. It was something I could control. I could plant seeds and watch them grow. I could pull weeds and see immediate results. The tomatoes didn't forget about me. The roses didn't make excuses. My neighbor, Dorothy, noticed. We'd been neighbors for 30 years, but had never been particularly close. She was in her 70s too, a widow like me. One afternoon in April, she came over with a pitcher of iced tea. "You've been out here every day," she said, settling into one of my patio chairs without waiting for an invitation. "Garden looks beautiful." "Thank you," I said. She sipped her tea and looked at me with eyes that had seen a lot of years. "Where's your family these days?" "Used to see them around all the time." Something about the directness of it made my throat tight. They're busy, I said. Dorothy nodded slowly. Busy. That's what my daughter says too. We sat there in the sun, two old women who had given everything to raise our children, now sitting in the quiet they'd left behind. After that, Dorothy and I started having tea together regularly. She never asked about my children again, and I was grateful for it. We talked about other things, books, the news, our gardens, the weather. Sometimes we didn't talk much at all, and that was fine too. It was Dorothy who was with me the day everything changed. It was late May, almost June. We were sitting on my porch after working in the garden all morning. The sun was warm, and the air smelled like honeysuckle. I heard a car pull up and looked over to see Sarah's van in my driveway. My heart jumped. She almost never came by unannounced anymore. Sarah got out with her daughter Emma, who was 12 now, almost as tall as her mother. They walked up the path, and I stood, brushing dirt from my pants. "Hi, Mum," Sarah said. She looked tired. There were circles under her eyes. "This is a nice surprise," I said. "Hi, sweetheart," I said to Emma, who gave me a small smile and a wave. "We were just in the neighborhood," Sarah said. "Emma has soccer practice at the school down the street. Thought we'd say hi while we wait." Come in," I said, already moving toward the door. "I'll get you something to drink. Are you hungry?" Actually, Mum, we can't stay long," Sarah said. "Just a few minutes." We stood there awkwardly. Dorothy quietly excused herself, saying she needed to get home. I watched her go, wishing she could stay as a buffer. "Sit down at least," I said. We sat on the porch chairs. Emma pulled out her phone and started scrolling. Sarah looked at her hands. "How have you been?" I asked. "Busy," she said. "You know how it is." I wanted to say no, I don't know how it is, because you don't tell me anymore, but I didn't. Instead, I asked about work, about Emma's school, about her husband. She answered in short sentences. "Fine, good, same as always." Then there was silence. The kind of silence that shouldn't exist between a mother and daughter. "Sarah," I said quietly, "can I ask you something?" She looked up at me. "Have I done something wrong?" Her face changed. Surprise, maybe, or discomfort. "What do you mean?" I said, choosing my words carefully. "I feel like I don't see you all anymore. Any of you. And I don't know why." She looked away. "We're just busy, Mum. I told you. You're always busy now," I said. "Too busy for holidays. Too busy for birthdays. Too busy to call. That's not fair," she said, and there was an edge to her voice now. "You know how crazy our lives are. The kids have activities every night. I'm working full-time. We barely have time to breathe." "I understand that," I said. "I do, but I'm your mother. Doesn't that count for something?" Emma looked up from her phone, sensing the tension. Sarah stood up. "I think we should go." "Please don't," I said. "I didn't mean to upset you. I just miss you. I miss all of you." She softened slightly but didn't sit back down. "I know, Mum. We'll try to visit more. I promise." But we both knew it was an empty promise. I'd heard it before. They left a few minutes later. I watched them drive away and felt more alone than ever. I didn't hear from Sarah for 3 weeks after that. When she finally called, she acted as if nothing had happened. Brief and pleasant. Surface level. Summer came. The 4th of July passed without an invitation. I saw on social media, yes, I had reluctantly joined Facebook the year before, that they'd all gathered at Michael's house for a barbecue. There were photos. My grandchildren eating watermelon. Sarah and Michael laughing by the grill. My daughter-in-law holding the new baby I'd only met once. I wasn't in any of the photos. I hadn't known the party was happening. I stared at those pictures for a long time that night. I zoomed in on my grandchildren's faces. They looked so happy, so complete. They didn't need me. That's when I started to wonder if maybe I was the problem. Maybe I'd been too much over the years, too helpful, too available. Maybe I'd smothered them with love, and now they needed space. Or maybe I hadn't been enough. Maybe I'd failed them in ways I couldn't even see. I went through old photo albums, looking at pictures of when they were young, birthday parties in our backyard, Christmas mornings in pajamas, the trip we took to the beach one year, all of us crowded into my old station wagon. I'd thought we were happy. I'd thought I was doing right. August brought a heat wave. I stayed inside mostly, the air conditioning running, trying not to think about the fact that I hadn't seen my children in months. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was Michael. "Hey, Ma," he said. "How are you?" "I'm fine," I said, trying to keep the eagerness out of my voice. "How are you?" "Good, good." Listen, I wanted to ask you something. Of course, I said. Would you be able to watch the kids next Saturday? Jessica and I have a wedding to go to, and our regular sitter fell through. There it was, the only time I heard from them anymore. When they needed something, I should have said no. I should have told him I had plans, that I couldn't drop everything at a moment's notice. But I didn't. Of course, I said. What time? The following Saturday, Michael dropped off 3 children at my door. Sophia, who was 10, Mason, who was 7, and little Claire, who had just turned 2 and barely knew who I was. Thanks, Ma, Michael said, already backing toward his car. We'll be back around 10. There's a bag with Claire's stuff. Sophia knows her bedtime routine. And he was gone. The older 2 were polite, but distant. They played on tablets most of the afternoon, occasionally asking for snacks. Claire cried for her mother and wouldn't let me hold her. Eventually, she fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from crying. I sat there watching her sleep, this little stranger who carried my blood, and felt my heart break all over again. When Michael came to pick them up that night, I helped carry the sleeping children to the car. He thanked me quickly, said they'd see me soon, and drove away. I stood in my driveway after his taillights disappeared, and I realized something. I was useful to them. I was convenient, but I wasn't wanted. There's a difference between being needed and being loved. I'd spent my whole life not seeing that difference, not wanting to see it. September came with cooler air and golden leaves. I turned 75. This time I didn't wait by the phone. I spent the day with Dorothy, who took me to lunch and bought me a slice of cake at the diner. Happy birthday, she said, raising her coffee cup. Thank you, I said. Hear from your kids? I shook my head. She nodded. Mine forgot too. 3 years running now. It was strangely comforting, knowing I wasn't alone in this. October arrived with beautiful weather. The leaves were changing. The air was crisp. It was always my favorite time of year. One afternoon, I was raking leaves in my front yard when a car I didn't recognize pulled up. A young woman got out, maybe in her 30s, looking at a piece of paper in her hand. Excuse me, she said. I'm looking for the Henderson house. I'm supposed to pick up some things Sarah left here. I stood there with the rake in my hands, confused. I'm Mrs. Henderson, I said. Sarah's mother. Oh, she said, looking uncomfortable. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Jen. I work with Sarah. She said she left some storage boxes here, from when she moved. She asked me to grab them. Storage boxes, I repeated. Yeah, she said, checking her paper again. She said they'd be in the garage. I let her into the garage, still confused. There were indeed boxes there, stacked in the corner. I'd asked Sarah about them years ago. She said it was just some old college stuff she'd get eventually. Jen started loading them into her car. I helped her, because I didn't know what else to do. Thank you so much, she said when we finished. Sarah really appreciates it. Why didn't she come get them herself? I asked. Jen looked at me, and something in her expression made my stomach drop. Oh, she said carefully. I think she's just really busy. You know how it is. But there was something in the way she said it, something pitying. After she left, I called Sarah. It went to voicemail. I waited an hour and called again. Voicemail again. Finally, late that evening, she texted back. Sorry, crazy day. What's up? I called instead of texting back. She answered this time. Why did you send someone to get your boxes? I asked. Why didn't you come yourself? Mum, I told you. I'm busy. Jen was coming out that way anyway. But I haven't seen you in months, I said. You couldn't take half an hour to stop by. She sighed. Please don't make this into a big thing. Make what? Into a big thing, I said, and I could hear my voice rising. Missing me? Wanting to see my daughter? You're being dramatic, she said. Am I? I said. When was the last time you invited me to anything? When was the last time you called just to talk? When was the last time you treated me like your mother instead of a storage unit? The words came out harder than I meant them. There was silence on the other end. You know what, Mom? She finally said. This is exactly why we don't come around more often. What does that mean? It means you're exhausting, she said. You're always playing the victim, always making us feel guilty. We can't do anything right in your eyes. I felt like I'd been slapped. That's not true, I said quietly. Isn't it? When was the last time we talked without you making some comment about how you never see us? When was the last time you just let us live our lives without the guilt trips? I don't mean to guilt trip anyone, I said. I just miss you. Well, maybe if you weren't so needy all the time, we'd want to spend more time with you. She said it. My daughter said it. Needy. I'm your mother, I whispered. I know, she said, and she sounded tired, but sometimes I need space from that. From you. We all do. I stood in my kitchen, the phone pressed to my ear, and felt the floor drop out from under me. I have to go, Sarah said. We'll talk later. She hung up. I sat down at my kitchen table and stared at nothing. Pepper jumped into my lap, purring, but I barely noticed. Needy, exhausting, playing the victim. Was that how they saw me? After everything I'd done, everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd given up. I thought about all those years of working 2 jobs, of missing sleep, of going without so they could have. I thought about every soccer game, every school play, every birthday party, every weekend spent babysitting while they went out with friends, every emergency I dropped everything for, and I was needy for wanting to be part of their lives now. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction from the past year, looking for the moment where I'd become too much, trying to see myself through their eyes. Maybe they were right. Maybe I had been asking for too much. Maybe wanting to be included in holidays and birthdays was unreasonable. Maybe calling once a week was smothering them. But even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't true. I knew what I was asking for wasn't unreasonable. It was basic. It was what families do. The next few weeks were dark. I moved through my days mechanically. Garden, groceries, television, sleep, repeat. Dorothy noticed. She invited me over for dinner more often. She didn't ask what was wrong. She just sat with me while I worked through it quietly. Then, in early November, something happened that changed everything. I was at the grocery store, the small one near my house where I'd shopped for 30 years. I was in the produce section, picking through apples, when I heard a familiar laugh. I looked up and saw Sarah. She was with another woman about her age, both of them with shopping carts, talking and laughing. My heart leapt. I almost called out to her, but something made me hesitate. I watched instead, half hidden by a display of oranges. They were talking loudly enough that I could hear pieces of their conversation. "So what are you doing for Thanksgiving?" the other woman asked Sarah. "Oh, we're going to Michael's again," Sarah said. "Making it a tradition, I guess." "That's nice," the woman said. "What about your mom?" Sarah's expression changed. She glanced around as if checking to see if anyone was listening. I stepped back slightly, my heart pounding. "We're not inviting her," Sarah said quietly. "Really?" the woman said, sounding surprised. "How come?" Sarah lowered her voice, but I could still hear. I moved closer, pretending to examine a display of pears. "It's just easier without her there," Sarah said. "She makes everything about her, you know? Like, we can't just have a nice family dinner. She has to bring up how we never see her, how we don't call enough. It's exhausting." The other woman made a sympathetic sound. "And honestly," Sarah continued, "Michael and I both agreed that the holidays are so much more peaceful without her. We can just relax and enjoy ourselves instead of managing her feelings all night." "That's hard," the other woman said. "But you have to take care of yourself too." "Exactly," Sarah said. "And it's not like she's alone or anything. She has neighbors. She's fine." They moved down the aisle, their voices fading. I stood there, still holding an apple, feeling like the world had tilted sideways. They had agreed, Sarah and Michael. They had made a decision together to exclude me. This wasn't about being busy. This wasn't about schedules or convenience. They didn't want me there. They thought I was easier to manage from a distance, that the holidays were more peaceful without me. I left my cart right there in the produce section and walked out of the store. I got in my car and drove home, hands shaking on the wheel. When I got inside, I sat down on my couch and let myself feel it, all of it. The hurt, the betrayal, the crushing weight of realizing that the people you love most in the world find you burdensome. I wasn't needy. I wasn't dramatic. I was a mother who loved her children and wanted to be part of their lives. That was all. And they had decided I wasn't worth the effort. I cried harder than I had in years. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere I'd kept locked away for too long. Pepper climbed onto my chest, purring and kneading, trying to comfort me in the only way she knew how. When I finally stopped crying, something had shifted inside me. I was done. Not done in a dramatic way, not done in an angry way, just done. I was done waiting for phone calls that wouldn't come, done making excuses for them, done pretending their behavior was acceptable, done shrinking myself to make them comfortable. I'd spent my whole life being what other people needed: a dutiful daughter, a loyal wife, a devoted mother. I'd bent and stretched and sacrificed until there was hardly anything left of just me, and it hadn't been enough. It would never be enough, because the problem wasn't that I was too much. The problem was that they had decided I wasn't worth the inconvenience of loving. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to chase them anymore. I wasn't going to call and beg for scraps of their attention. I wasn't going to wait for invitations that would never come. I was going to live my life, not the life I'd imagined, where I was surrounded by my children and grandchildren, but the life I actually had, and I was going to make it good. The next morning, I woke up with purpose for the first time in months. I called Dorothy and asked if she wanted to go to the botanical garden an hour away. We'd never been, but I'd always wanted to see it. She said yes immediately. We spent the day walking through gorgeous gardens, having lunch at a little cafe, talking about everything and nothing. When we got home, I felt lighter. The following week, I signed up for a watercolor painting class at the community center. I'd always been interested in art, but never had time for it when I was raising kids and working. I joined a book club. I started volunteering at the animal shelter twice a week. I took myself to matinee movies on Wednesday afternoons when tickets were cheap. I kept my phone charged, but I stopped checking it constantly. When it rang, if it rang, I answered. But I didn't sit by it waiting anymore. Thanksgiving came. I spent it with Dorothy and 3 other women from the book club, all of us alone for various reasons. We each brought a dish and ate together in Dorothy's dining room, talking and laughing. It was one of the best Thanksgivings I'd had in years. When Sarah called 2 days later, casual as anything, asking how my holiday was, I told her the truth. I had dinner with friends. It was lovely. Oh, she said, sounding surprised. That's good. We talked for a few more minutes, surface conversation, then said goodbye. She didn't apologize for not inviting me. She didn't even acknowledge it, and I didn't bring it up. What would be the point? December came. I decorated my tree and my house, but this time, I did it for me, not hoping someone would come see it, just because I liked the way it looked. I bought small gifts for my grandchildren and mailed them with cards. I didn't expect anything in return. On Christmas Eve, I went to church, something I hadn't done in years. Then I came home and made myself a nice dinner, prime rib, fancy potatoes, the works. I set my table properly with real dishes and candles. I put on music I loved. I had Christmas dinner alone, and it was peaceful. My phone rang around 8. "Michael, Merry Christmas, Ma," he said. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," I said. "What did you do today?" "I had a nice quiet day," I said. "Made myself a good dinner. Went to church." "That's good," he said. There was a pause. We had everyone over here. Big crowd." "That sounds nice," I said, and I meant it. He seemed to expect more. Maybe guilt or sadness or a comment about not being invited. When I didn't offer any of that, he said, "Well, we'll have to get together soon." "That would be lovely," I said. "Take care, sweetheart." After we hung up, I realized something. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. Not the way I had been. I was sad. Yes, sad for what could have been. Sad for the relationship we'd never have. But I wasn't destroyed by it anymore. The new year came. I made resolutions. Real ones. I would take better care of myself. I would pursue things that made me happy. I would build a life that didn't depend on waiting for people who might never show up. January and February passed. My 76th birthday came. Dorothy took me out for dinner. The book club surprised me with a cake at our meeting. I received cards from 3 of my watercolor classmates. Sarah sent a text. Michael called and talked for 5 minutes. It was enough. Or rather, I had stopped needing it to be more. In March, I did something I'd been thinking about for weeks. I packed a bag and took a trip by myself. Just a long weekend to a bed and breakfast in the mountains. I hiked, I read, I sat on the porch and watched the sunset. I felt free. When I came back, there was a message from Sarah. "Call me when you get a chance." I called the next day. "Where have you been?" she asked. "I tried calling a few days ago." "I took a trip," I said. "Up to the mountains." "By yourself?" "Yes." "Oh." She sounded uncertain. "That's good, I guess. I was calling because Emma has a recital next weekend. I thought maybe you'd want to come." My heart squeezed. The old me would have jumped at the chance, would have rearranged anything to be there. "What day?" I asked. "Saturday at 2. I have plans." "Saturday," I said. "I'm sorry." It was true. The book club was taking a trip to a museum. But even if it hadn't been true, I think my answer would have been the same. Oh, Sarah said. Okay, maybe next time. Maybe, I said. After we hung up, I waited for the guilt to come. It didn't. I'd spent 75 years putting everyone else first. I'd given everything I had, and it hadn't made them love me more or treat me better. I wasn't being vindictive or petty. I was simply choosing myself. Finally, spring bloomed beautiful that year. My garden grew better than it had in ages, probably because I spent so much time tending it. I took photos of my flowers and started a little Instagram account, just for fun. I connected with other gardeners from around the country. It was a small thing, but it brought me joy. In May, something unexpected happened. Emma, my granddaughter, showed up at my door one afternoon after school. She was 13 now, riding her bike by herself. "Hi, Grandma," she said, a little shy. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, surprised. "Does your mum know you're here?" She nodded. "I told her I wanted to visit you." "Come in," I said. We sat at my kitchen table. I gave her lemonade and cookies. We talked about school, about her friends, about the books she was reading. Then she said quietly, "I'm sorry we don't see you more." I looked at this young girl, so earnest, so sweet. "It's okay, honey." "It's not," she said. "I've been thinking about it a lot. I remember when I was little, and I used to stay here all the time. You used to make me pancakes, and we'd watch movies. I miss that." "I do too," I said softly. "Why did we stop coming over?" she asked. I thought about how to answer that. I didn't want to put her in the middle. I didn't want to badmouth her parents. "People get busy," I said. "Lives change." She looked down at her cookie. "Mum says you get upset when we don't visit. That's why it's easier to not come over." My heart hurt hearing it, but I kept my voice steady. "Did she tell you that?" Emma nodded. I took a breath. "Sweetheart, I'm not going to lie to you. It did hurt me when I stopped hearing from everyone. I missed you all very much. But I understand your mum and dad and uncle are busy with their own lives. I'm okay with that now. But we should still see you," Emma said. "You're my grandma." I smiled at her. "You're here now. That means the world to me." We talked for another hour. When she left, she hugged me tight and promised to visit again. She did visit, every few weeks, sometimes alone, sometimes with her brother. Sarah never mentioned it, and I never asked. Those visits were their choice, and I treasured them. Summer passed in a peaceful rhythm. I'd found a balance in my life that didn't depend on my children's presence or absence. I had my garden, my friends, my hobbies. I had moments of loneliness, of course, nights when I wished things were different, but they were just moments, not the constant ache they used to be. In August, Dorothy had a health scare. She spent 3 days in the hospital. I was there every single day, bringing her magazines and keeping her company. When she came home, I checked on her daily, brought her meals, made sure she was recovering well. "Your kids know you're doing all this?" she asked one afternoon. I shook my head. "I haven't told them." She studied me. "You've changed this past year." "I have," I said. "For the better," she said. "You seem lighter somehow." "I feel lighter," I admitted. I stopped waiting. She nodded, understanding immediately. The year moved toward its close. September, October, November. I made my own plans for Thanksgiving, joining a community dinner at the church. It was full of people, young and old, families and singles. The food was good, the company warm. I went home full and content. December came again. This time Michael called early in the month. "Hey, Ma," he said. "So we're doing Christmas at our place again this year." "That's nice," I said. "And we wanted to see if you'd like to come." I was quiet for a moment, surprised. "We've been talking," he continued, "and we realized we haven't included you much. Sarah feels bad about it. I feel bad about it. The kids have been asking why they don't see you." "Emma," I thought. "That's very kind of you," I said. "So you'll come?" he asked. "What time?" I asked. "Christmas Eve, around 4. I thought about it. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, desperate for this invitation, willing to accept any crumbs they'd throw. I thought about the woman I was now. "I appreciate the invitation," I said. "I really do, but I've made other plans this year." "Oh," he said, clearly not expecting that. "What are you doing?" "I'm having dinner with friends," I said. "We're doing a whole thing." It was partially true. Dorothy and I and a few others from the book club were getting together. "Maybe you could do both," he suggested. "Come by for a bit?" "I don't think so," I said gently, "but thank you for thinking of me." "Are you mad at us or something?" he asked. No, sweetheart, I'm not mad. I just have plans. He didn't know what to say to that. We ended the call awkwardly. Sarah called the next day. I heard Michael invited you to Christmas, she said. He did, I said. And you said no? I have plans, I said. Mum, she said, and I could hear frustration in her voice. We're trying here. I know, I said, and I appreciate it. But you can't ignore someone for over a year and then expect them to jump when you finally decide to include them. We didn't ignore you, she protested. Didn't you? I asked quietly. She was silent. Sarah, I said, I love you. I love Michael. I love my grandchildren. But I can't keep breaking my heart, waiting for you to decide I'm worth your time. I've built a life that doesn't revolve around hoping you'll call. And that's healthy. That's what I should have done a long time ago. So what? You're just done with us? She asked. No, I said. I'm not done with you, but I'm done begging for a place in your life. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be because you actually want it, not because you feel guilty, not because the kids are asking questions, because you genuinely want me in your life. I do want that, she said, but her voice was small. Then show me, I said, not with one invitation after a year of silence. Show me consistently, over time, prove it. We hung up without resolution. Christmas came. I spent it with friends, sharing food and laughter and stories. It was warm and genuine and real. On Christmas night, Emma called, not texted, called. Merry Christmas, Grandma, she said. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. I missed you today, she said. I missed you too. Mum's upset that you didn't come, she said. I know, I said. But sometimes adults have to make hard choices. I'm glad you're not sad anymore, Emma said. What makes you say that? You used to seem sad when I'd see you. Like you were trying really hard to be happy but weren't really. You don't seem like that now. Out of the mouths of children, I thought. I'm not sad anymore, I told her. I really am happy. Good, she said. I'm glad. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet house and reflected on the year, on everything I'd lost and everything I'd found. I'd lost the fantasy of the family I thought I had, the dream of being at the center of my children's lives, surrounded by grandchildren, essential and loved. But I'd found myself again, the woman I'd been before I became a wife and mother, the woman who had her own interests and her own friends and her own worth that wasn't tied to anyone else. I'd found peace. January arrived with snow and cold. I kept to my routines, finding comfort in them. And then, in February, on the morning of my 77th birthday, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Sarah and Michael standing there with all 5 grandchildren, holding a homemade cake. Happy birthday, Mum, they said together. I stood there, stunned. Can we come in? Sarah asked. Of course, I said. We crowded into my small house. The children ran around, excited, while Sarah and Michael stood awkwardly in my living room. We've been talking, Michael said, a lot, about how we've treated you, about what you said, and we want to do better, Sarah continued. We want to really be a family again. If you'll let us. I looked at them, my children, finally seeing me, finally hearing me. I'd be open to that, I said carefully, but it has to be real, not just today because you feel guilty about my birthday. We know, Sarah said. We're going to try. Really try. And they did. Not perfectly. There were still missed calls sometimes, still last-minute cancellations, but there was effort, real effort. They started inviting me to things regularly. They called to check in, not just when they needed something. They showed up. It took time to trust it, to believe it would last. But slowly, carefully, we rebuilt something. Not the relationship we'd had before, because that was built on me giving everything and getting nothing. This was different, more balanced, more honest. I kept my own life too, my friends, my hobbies, my independence. I didn't fold myself back into their lives the way I used to. I maintained boundaries. I said no when I needed to, and they respected it, most of the time. There are still hard days, days when I remember how it felt to be excluded, to be told I was too much. Those wounds healed, but they left scars. But there are good days too. Days when we all gather around my table and it feels warm and right. Days when Emma calls just to chat. Days when one of my grandchildren hugs me and tells me they love me. I'm 78 now. I sit here in my garden on a spring afternoon, Pepper curled beside me, and I think about everything that's happened. I think about the woman I was 3 years ago, sitting alone on Christmas, believing she was unlovable, and I wish I could tell her what I know now, that her worth wasn't determined by whether her children made time for her, that loving someone doesn't mean accepting being treated poorly, that it's never too late to choose yourself. I think about all the women out there who might be where I was, waiting by phones that don't ring, making excuses for children who don't visit, believing they're asking for too much when all they want is basic love and respect. And I want them to know they're not alone. I want them to know it's okay to stop waiting. It's okay to build a life that brings joy even in the absence of the people you wish were there, because you deserve more than crumbs. You deserve more than guilt and silence and being treated like an obligation. You deserve to be loved, not because you're useful or convenient, but because you're you. And if the people in your life can't see that, if they can't give you even the bare minimum of respect and inclusion, then it's okay to step back, to choose peace over pain. It doesn't mean you stop loving them. It just means you start loving yourself too. That's the lesson it took me 75 years to learn. But I learned it, and my life is richer for it. The sun is setting now, painting my garden in gold and amber. I'll go inside soon, make myself dinner, maybe call Dorothy and see if she wants to watch a movie. My children might call tonight. They might not. Either way, I'll be okay, because I'm not waiting anymore. I'm living, and that makes all the difference.